Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. I am going to be hosting it. My name's Anne-Marie and I'm head STEMet. We're waiting for a couple more of you to join and then I'll get started. So hi everyone, welcome to week 5 and today's quick introduction to Agile. Thank you for joining. Okay, so this is Anne-Marie back again. Hi everyone, I'm going to be your host for today's introduction to Agile session. Thanks for joining us at 4 o'clock. I'm waiting for a couple more of you to sign in and log in and then we'll get started. And hi to all of you saying hello in the comments. Thanks. I like my hair too. Okay, brilliant. So we're going to get started with today's session. Hi everyone, like I said, my name is Anne-Marie and I am head STEMet and I'm going to be hosting today's Wednesday tutorial. I really like Agile and I've worked with it before and also in STEMet we've been doing lots of work with Agile. So I asked Charlotte if I could run this session instead. So really excited to be with you all. This is our Wednesday week 5 of 12. Gosh, they're flying by. And this is one of 3 sessions we're running this week. So thank you very much to those of you that are joining. I can see lots of you in the comments that have been here before. So welcome back to you all. So before we get started properly today, I want to do 2 things. One is to introduce you to Jess. So this is Jess. Say hello to Jess. And also to introduce you to Karen.
Hi.
And they are STEMet's alumni. They're STEMet's, and they are going to be running parts of the session today as well. Each of them has brought their own Agile experiences that they're going to share with you all. And secondly, I'd like to ask each of you, do you know who Roma Agrawal is? So pop in the comments, do we know who Roma Agrawal is? And I'm asking Jess and Karen actually, just give me a nod or a shake of the head. Do you know who Roma Agrawal is? Oh, neither of them do. Gosh, they're speaking today, but they didn't tune in on Monday. So have any of you heard of Roma Agrawal before? I'm going to wait and just check the comments to see if we've got any suggestions for who she is. This is the pause where we wait for the comments to come through. There is actually a bit of a delay, but if any of you have noticed that watching. Oh, loads. She's an engineer who helped with the design of the shard. They're from Isabella. Brilliant. Petia's also put the same. She's a structural engineer. Chloe knows she's designed the shard. Brilliant. So we all know Roma. So fantastic. Thank you to those of you that were listening on Monday. or have read her book or listened to her podcast or follow her on social media. So Roma is our role model for the week. And she's actually Roma Agrawal MBE, and she's an Indian British American structural engineer. She lives in London, and I think those of you on Monday saw Z, who lives with her as well. And she's worked on several major engineering projects, including the Shard. So she actually loved to play with Lego when she was younger. And I wonder how many of you like playing with Lego or have used to like playing with Lego. And she thinks that's where her love for engineering and making things came from. She studied a degree in physics at Oxford, actually, and went on to do a master's in structural engineering at Imperial College London. And if you didn't get to see her on Monday, or if you saw her on Monday and would like to see more of her, she'll actually be joining us for a Friday Live on Instagram this week. So that's a little bit about Roma. She's our role model for this week. And actually, it's funny because when we talk about Agile, it might not be immediately obvious if you don't know what it is, why that's relevant to Roma. So over to my kind of co-hosts today. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Agile. In this session, we're going to cover the basic principles of Agile project management, because Agile is quite a broad thing. And then you're also going to learn some tips on how to implement them in your daily life. And hopefully we'll also have fun, even if it's just remembering our times that we played with Lego, because I know loads of you like Lego. So first off, what is Agile? Jess, Karen, why are we here? What are we talking about today?
So we're talking about a way of structuring not just our lives, but projects in the future using a set of values and principles.
Karen, anything to add to that?
I would describe Agile as a way of working. It's about making continuous improvement and just getting started and getting a little bit done instead of spending loads of time planning and then finding out something's changed, and that was all a waste of time.
Pretty much it, yes. So Agile is, some would say, is the kind of opposite or the new version of what we call waterfall. So normally when you're starting a project, or in the olden days, I guess, when you're starting a project, you might kind of do analysis of the issue that you're trying to deal with and why you need the project. You might then design what you're going to create next. You then go to your implementation when you make it, you test, and then you evaluate, but you do all of that once. So it's a little bit like planning to build a house, for example, and you kind of sit down and say at the beginning exactly what you need, you lay out your budget, you lay out your designs, you start building, then you test, and then you evaluate. But with Agile, what we do is we kind of have a framework that means that we're able to check in as we go. So it's similar to kind of actually saying, we know we want to build a house, let's build a couple of walls first, see how that goes. Then we'll add a couple of more walls, see how that goes, and check our budget. And then maybe you might have planned to have a 4-bedroom house, but actually you realize you've only got space or budget for a 2-bedroom house. And then you're kind of Agile is the way of kind of continuously iterating is what we call it. But you just keep trying and you work in cycles to get it to work. If any of you are kind of more interested in seeing where it started, there's a thing called Agile Manifesto, which is 2001, which is when a kind of group of technologists initially put it together and said that's how they wanted to run projects. So that's what Agile is. It's a framework. He said she used to design systems in the olden days, yes, so before 2001. So that's how we used to run things, and that's how we run now. So where and how can it be applied? Jess and Karen, don't spoil it too much, Jess, of what you're going to say later on, but how can Agile be applied?
It can be applied when creating applications or group projects at work. You can even use it in school, maybe.
Karen?
I think you can also apply it in more subtle ways in everyday life, which I'll elaborate on later. But it's more of a mindset that you can kind of get into to help you get things done.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not just the framework, it is the mindset. You can have an Agile mindset where actually you're going to keep going, you're going to keep trying and get better with each time, definitely. And you can also apply in your personal life. So what I'm going to be taking you through before we hear from Jess and Karen is about time and task management, which is something that's really, really, really important now that we're on lockdown and that lots of us are at home. We've got lots of time. You might have lots of tasks and things that you need to do. And Agile is actually something that can help you with that. Then we're going to hear from Jess, who's going to talk a little bit about how she's actually an apprentice at the moment and how she uses Agile at work. And then Karen's going to talk to us a little bit about Agile networking and kind of tips and tricks that she's picked up on her Agile journey. So the first thing that I wanted to show you or talk to you about was Kanban boards. So I don't know, Jess and Karen, while I bring up a real Kanban board, do you want to let everyone know what those are?
Yeah. So it's a structure of how you do different tasks. So your mum could write a list of like chores that you need to do in the house, and like when you're done, you tick them off, or like a golden chart in school. I guess it would be similar to that.
Karen?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a better way of doing a to-do list, I would say. I think what makes it different is that instead of just having your to-do and you're done, you have your doing column as well. And if you're someone like me, I will start 5 things at once and then not get around to finishing any of them. So it's really good for making sure you don't overload yourself.
Yes. That's very, very important, actually, especially when you've got so much to do. So this is a Kanban board, an example. I've built this on something called Trello, which some of you might have used or heard of before. It's a really cool free tool, actually. And so, as you both said, we've got our to-do list here, we've got our doing list here, and we've got our done list here. And I hope you can all see this. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Maybe that's easier to see now. Oh, there we go. So this is my kind of Kanban board. Oh, it's got too big. And so this is our sessions, the Kanban board actually for what we're doing today. So I've already introduced the session. I hope you all agree that that's been done. We're now doing something on time and task management. And here are the other things that we'll be having going on while the session is happening. And what you do is you kind of pull them across, and you can do this digitally or you can do this with post-it notes, but it means that you can keep track of things. So if I'm someone like Karen that likes to do lots of things at the same time, then I can see what I need to do, I can see what I'm still doing, and I can see what is already done. And then it's nice because at the end, eventually you end up with everything in the done column, and there's a nice good feeling of satisfaction. So that's just one example. I don't know if any of you have used Trello or if any of you use Trello already, but Kanban boards are really good use for them. The other examples that we've got, I want to share one from our godmother Stemet. So one of the parents that we know is at home at the moment, and this is her Kanban board that she's done for her homeschooling with her children at home. So she's got to do, doing and done. And you can see we've got history and spelling and your diary and typing club and reading and maths, and they've created a Kanban board. So that might be something that you want to make or you want to create. Trello should be free on the App Store. Make sure you're looking at the official Trello. I've just seen that on the comment from Jamie. Make sure you're looking at the official one. It's definitely free. And bullet journals. Yeah, I also have a bullet journal. But what's nice about this is kind of being able to have those post-it notes and have it really easy to see. And both of you, I know Jess and Karen have got to see kind of Kanban boards in real life. And it's a lot of post-it notes, a lot of moving. And it's quite a good visual way for you as a team as well to see how far you've gone. So Trello.com is a really good tool if any of you want to use those. The other tool I wanted to talk about was circadian rhythms. So this is a way of planning your days. Again, we've all got 24 hours in the day from the clock went back. But most days we've got 24 hours. And Agile is a really good way of kind of looking at how you spend your time and your kind of rhythms as well that you have within a day. So this might be something cool that if we've got more time towards the end of the session that you might be able to do, and you can take a screenshot of this or kind of try and draw it down. It's just the 24 hours of the day split up on a column on two rows, but you're also able to kind of look at how you normally are, so how you naturally are, And then also your natural state and how you plot that against time. So for example, if I go back a slide, we've got kind of two people that have filled this out. So the first person, blue person, is normally tired at midnight. They're asleep from 1 a.m. till 8 a.m. They then wake up and they're hungry. Then they're vibrant. Then they're on fire. Then they're at 70% and they're hungry and they're on autopilot. By 2 o'clock, they're a bit distracted, and 3 o'clock, they're vibrant again. Then they're on autopilot, they're vibrant, 70% hungry, they're at 70% energy, vibrant, and slowing down. Whereas this person, the person in grey, likes to sleep a little bit earlier. So actually, they're already asleep by midnight. They start to sleep at 11 p.m., although they've been tired from 9. So some would say that they should probably sleep slightly earlier. And then they go up until 7, then they're hungry. And so it's really interesting actually to look at what's your natural cycles for you, especially if you're at home and you're able to manage your own time. And then map activities onto that. So this might be a cool exercise for you to try. So you're one of 8 states we've got on this. You're either vibrant, you're distracted, you're asleep, you're on fire, you're at 70%, which is for your energy levels, you're tired, you're on autopilot, or you're hungry. And I know I'm always very Jess also always hungry. So we did the session before this. So it's nice to do hungry and tired, or hungry and asleep. And so you plot that in. So that's quite a cool one to kind of plot in, and then put the activities that you need to do as well against that time. And it's really good to kind of look at when is the best time for you to do certain activities, not just because other people are doing them or because mum or dad says so, but because that's where your natural state is kind of at. So that's quite a good way to kind of manage your time and think about how you might plan your days, how you might plan your weekdays, how you might plan your weekends. So those are 2 really good tools from Agile that I quite like, and it's good to do every now and then, something like this circadian rhythm, but also the Kanban boards I live by. So that's genuinely how I manage my life and live in a very, very agile way. So I'm going to hand over to Jess. I don't know if there's a way I can put you at the top, actually, Jess. No, I'm going to leave you as you are. So I'm going to hand over to Jess, who has been working in Agile now for a couple of months, I think. Actually, it's been, right? And she's going to talk about her practical experience and applying Agile, so not just what we've said, but the whole framework in the workplace. Over to you, Jess.
Awesome. So my name's Jess. I'm 19. At the moment, I've been doing training with QA, which is a consulting and training organization, and they help people get qualifications. So I started off doing it with Stemet, learning about Agile, fell in love with it, decided to continue with them longer and do software development. And then I moved on to doing Pega, which is the designing framework of applications. And we use a lot of Agile, especially in training, preparing us for the workplace. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about that today. Next slide, please. So what is Pega? It's a low-code, no-code, model-driven application development tool. That sounds quite difficult and slightly maybe unapproachable, but then once you learn about it, you're like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. And if you're someone who likes using their brain in a more technical way, but doesn't necessarily want to do a lot of coding or want to study, memorize all these coding languages, maybe this is for you, because it's very visual. So if you're also a very visual person that likes putting tech and visual representations together and architecture, then this is great. It really is the Minecraft of application development, which is awesome. So yeah, I'll show you what it looks like. Could we go on the next stage, please? Yeah, so this is what it looks like. It's like a series of tables going from one section to the next. So if you had a company that had car insurance and you need your users to fill in a form, you can get paid a lot of money for doing this, by the way. If any of you are thinking about them dollars in the future. So the first stage is to ask the user to put in their information into a form, and then that form gets sent to a part of the company that checks it. And then the next stage would be to send out like a receipt and a confirmation to the user. And then the end stage is like processing it. And all you have to do is drag and drop buttons. That is it. So you drag and drop buttons, and you have to configure those buttons yourself, which is basically the hardest part of it. So yeah, that's that. And the next page, thank you. Who uses it? At the moment, because I'm learning how to use it in IT, different companies hire out or they bring in system architects to design this for them. It can be very efficient for a business, especially if you're currently doing it on paper. So one of my assignments at the moment was to create a application for a company that was purely based on paper. It was something similar to B&Q, where customers had to put forward an order on the telephone and then it gets processed. But if you can just do that on a computer, not only do you know that there won't be any errors with like handwriting or little bits of paper being missing. It's all in one place. It's all saved, and it's all documented, and multiple people can witness it. So it's very efficient in that sort of way. Next page, please. So yeah, it's sending instructions to a computer, just like code. Code, you're just transcribing different instructions, turning it from human language into computer language for them to carry out different functions. This is just doing it in English and processing it in English, and the computer will understand it for you, which will make things a lot easier. Have any of you heard of Pegasystems before? Because I didn't know about it. A lot of things in IT, like Agile, all these different things that we're learning, they're fairly new things, and it's not like they teach it in school. They don't tell you in school you're going to possibly do this as your job in the future. You have to actively search for it, and it's just a start of a bunch of new things that you're going to learn in IT, because it's this constant development of IT, which means that people need to constantly develop themselves in different technologies. So yeah, a few of you haven't heard of it before, and that's okay not to know about some certain things in IT, because you will learn it. And that's why, like, Stemet has really helped me introduce myself to the world of IT, which is great.
You heard it here first. Lots of things name. I don't know if we saw Soraya name there, like Pegasus. All right, next slide.
So how is it different to coding? You don't need to know a different language, and yeah, you're still using that clever part in your brain where you're trying to organize things. Also, this is great if you're someone that likes to organize things, because then you feel like in control of the application and where it's going to go. And when you do the testing side of things, which is also part of it, you can actually see how the user is going from like one section to the other, which is cool. And the next slide, please. And who do you work with? So as a Pega team, we work with a bunch of different people. Just like in Agile, you've got your product owners, you've got your Scrum Masters, and you've got like the development team. And you all sort of work together on different projects to make sure that you're getting out to the client right to their specification. So if someone, like Anne-Marie said earlier about building a house, if someone said, we want you to build a house, but you start building a tent, that's not really abiding to what the customer asked for. And Agile is very much about the customer. It's very customer focused. whilst in previous ways of working, like in the waterfall method, which was very linear, you would sort of do projects based on what your manager wanted from you. But this time, yes, you're listening to your Scrum Master, who is sort of like the project manager, but it's very transparent. So you see exactly what the client wanted, and you don't just get secondhand information. Next slide.
Should we go through what some of these are? Because I don't know if people will have heard. I think system architect we spoke about already earlier on. But something like a Scrum Master, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that before, or product owner. We can maybe talk a little bit about what each of these is. So Jamie has heard of a Scrum Master. So when we were talking about Agile earlier, we kind of didn't go into the detail, but a Scrum, Jess, to describe what a Scrum is?
So a Scrum...
It sounds like the one from rugby.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rugby terminology in Agile. I'm just going to start talking about rugby so that people don't know that I'm not good at memorizing information.
That's all right. So with a Scrum Master, normally this is the person that looks after the Agile framework or the Agile process, right? So I've got friends that are Scrum Masters, and they work alongside people on projects, but they're the ones that make sure that kind of Agile is kept to. So no one reports into the Scrum Master. They're not the project manager, but they're the person that's in charge of making sure that Agile is done and Agile is done correctly. So that's the Scrum Master, and you have your daily stand-ups as well that you do. You have sprints. I don't know if any of you have kind of heard that as well in Agile, which is the kind of the times that you work. So you work in kind of 30-day cycles on a project and check in every 30 days. So that's that. Product owner.
Yeah, so the product owner is a person who make sure that they know what's best for the company in terms of the actual product, and all of the information that they sort of want on there is given to us so that we can carry them out properly.
So there's lots of different roles actually, and lots of these are kind of new ones that are coming up. But yeah, okay, cool. I just thought I'd pick up two. Brilliant. Next slide.
Yeah, and Agile teams. So I think someone mentioned sprints, but when it comes to building an application, you do a series of sprints, and within each sprint, you at the end of it, you release a basic version of what you want, and it's a really good way of looking at it in a circle. So you meet together, you plan out what you're going to do, you design it, develop it, test it, evaluate it, and release the product. Whilst before, you would do all those things in one go instead of a series of goes, which means if you made one mistake, you'd have to start the project all over again, and you'd lose out on a lot of money. So that's why it's more efficient this way.
And I think everyone will recognize as well, you might see this with apps that you use. So many of you will know that you get kind of a new update to your app every 2 weeks or whatever. Facebook, I think, has a new update every 2 weeks. And that's because they're working kind of in an agile process as well and kind of updating features as they come. Anissa's got a question that I just wanted to answer, I just spotted it there. Agile doesn't have their own website. Do they have one? So Agile is a framework. It's kind of owned by the kind of Agile Alliance. So I had the link earlier, which was agilemanifesto.org, which I can type in there and share with you. But that's where you want to, if you want to kind of hear Agile kind of from the people that put it together originally, that's where you can read it. But it's open source. It's not something that's that has its own website in that kind of way where you kind of sign up and be a part of it. But agilemanifesto.org is the main website. Okay, back to you, Jess.
Cool. And yeah, so it is worth it. If you're someone who likes tech, it's great in terms of earning money in the future, which is a bonus, isn't it? Why shouldn't you think about money in the future? And if that's one of your goals, is to do what you love and earn money at the same time. It's not selfish to think of it. Sometimes people don't really like expect you to think about your career depending on how much money you're going to earn. But if you look around and find careers that suit your personality and stuff that you like doing, it is also good to have a look at that side of things, because you do deserve it. You're working very hard in something that you love, and why not get paid fairly for it? So it does pay quite well to be in the IT industry. And in this particular case, you can be earning up to 85, even 95k in London when it comes to being a lead Pega developer. So yeah, it's well worth it.
I always like to think the more money I have, the more food I can buy.
Yeah, same.
Brilliant. So thank you very much, Jess. So that was your kind of practical experience of Agile and your journey through it. I think people have been asking questions as we've been doing the sessions. I'm just going to scroll back and see if there are any other questions. No, there weren't any other ones. Brilliant. So thank you very much, Jess. You're not going away though, but I'm going to hand over to Karen, who did the same Agile Academy as you did back in October, and she's going to take us through some Agile networking tips and tricks.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was first introduced to Agile when I was doing AS Computer Science, and I learned about it as a software development methodology. And then it first came up in a kind of networking environment when I was doing work experience at Genomics England, which Stemet partnered up with them. And I was talking to the project manager, and he asked me if I knew what Agile was. And he was surprised that I did, and he was impressed that I did. And he told me about how that was used in project management, which I didn't know at the time. I just thought it was a software thing, and about some other sort of applications of computer science methodologies where you're optimizing things, and how that was transferred into project management. So when I saw the Stemet Agile Academy, I signed up because I wanted to learn more, and completed that in October, and that was sort of how I got into it. And I found that when I have been at networking events, and when it comes up as a topic, professionals are really impressed if as a young person you know about it, let alone if you have a industry qualification in it. Is a really, really good thing to have. So if you go to networking events and you're looking for things, especially STEM networking events, and you want things to talk about, you don't want to ask people, if you have these sort of qualifications, when you're telling them about yourself, you can say, you know, it's important to say, you know, what you've achieved and what your skills are, you know, and saying that you've done a qualification in Agile can really is a really good thing to have on your CV. So also make sure it's like on your CV and your LinkedIn. And ask people, like, do they use it in their jobs? How they use it in their jobs? Because if you find someone who does a job that you think you'd like to do, then it's good to know how they work, because you can develop your skill set over the years throughout your studies and after that, so that you have the best chance possible getting into that job. And it also gives you a good idea of, like, is this the right thing for me, because you are practicing these skills.
Okay. I might get you to shout a little bit more, Karen, because people, your headphones are not, your mic on your headphones is not picking you up properly. So we might get you to kind of shout a little bit more.
Okay.
But for anyone that can't hear Karen, she's going through the points that we've got on the slide. So you can definitely kind of read what she's saying. You'll kind of get the gist of what she's saying from the bullet points on the slide. But keep going, Karen. Maybe let's shout a little bit more.
Okay, sure. There's also something that I think you can do once you've, like, if you understand Agile, if you've got a qualification Agile, is try to implement it in your daily life. like I said earlier, it's a mindset, it's a way of working. So if I know I've got a really big task to do, I might be hesitant to start it. And you kind of get it into your head that you need to plan, and you have this sort of stereotypical way of like how you think things should be done. You're going to plan it and you're going to do it and you're going to edit it. And I feel often that holds us back. We don't want to start because it's such a big job. And having an agile mindset, you can tell yourself, I'm just going to do a little bit. I'm just going to get something down. Just going to write something down, and then I'll come back to it tomorrow. And it makes it so much easier to get started. And it gives you time to reflect on work you've done. Then when you go to, improve it, rather than just trying to do it all in one go. And I think that also helps you. It helps you to get used to Agile. So when you are networking with people, you can also tell them how you've used it in your daily life, because if that's something you are doing at home, you're demonstrating you're using that skill. It's not just, writing on a certificate, you've learned this qualification, you've got the qualification, learn the skill, and you actually use it. And I feel like you can also use an agile approach when you are networking to help you. Networking can be really intimidating, especially if you've not done a lot of it before. And especially if you're young, at our age, where you go into a room full of adult professionals who have all these qualifications and this experience, and you've never, you haven't even left school, you're still studying. Just go around lots of people and just speak to them a little bit. Find out a little bit about what they do, what their background is, and then those people that really impressed you, you felt you connected with, or really interested you, you can go back to again and, have a more in-depth conversation and get some more details about their work and their life. And that is a very agile way of approaching networking. And I think that's not only more effective in terms of having conversations and getting to know people and finding things out about their lives in these industries, but it also kind of makes it a bit easier, because if you start speaking to someone, you get trapped in a really long conversation, you've got a list of questions in your head, okay, I should find out what degree they did and how they're using it in their studies. It can be really daunting, and it can also be a huge waste of time if you end up trapped in a conversation with someone who you don't really connect with, or their job isn't what you thought it was. So having that kind of mindset of doing sprints, like iterations, doing a little bit, and then coming back to improve it, I find it much easier to talk to people and to talk to lots of people. And you're more likely to find people you connect with when you are approaching networking that way than trying to have an in-depth conversation with everyone you come across.
Brilliant. So to recap, because I think that most people managed to hear the second half of what you said, but to go back to kind of through the 4 points, I think it's, if you have an interest in Agile, if you've done an online course, or if you've been on the academy, then make sure you kind of update that in your CV and in LinkedIn profiles, and talk about Agile and your experiences with Agile. And someone's asked how to find out about networking events. So I think now that we're on lockdown, Twitter is the main place to really see anything. Of course, we're not doing networking events physically in this country at the moment. But with STEMETS, our panels are all networking events as well, but there are lots of organizations. If you check out the zine, STEMETS zine website, then we list kind of other events of other people, but kind of STEM and tech events are really good ones to go to. But to ask people about Agile and if they know about it and if they use it in their jobs. And like you're saying, it's quite a good way to connect with people, because if you're a young person who is talking about Agile, they're going to be impressed that you know about it and that you spent the time to be on a session like this to understand some of the kind of different tools that you can have in Agile. But also, like you said, kind of trying to implement it in your daily life means that even if you're afraid of starting something, or kind of apprehensive about doing it, or you don't want to do something big, kind of, and it's daunting, then having an agile mindset means that you can just start something and then in a week you come back and you check again and you continually get better and better and better and better because you've got that agile thing of kind of always being in that loop and checking in with yourself. And then it also means that if you're talking to someone and you feel like maybe you don't connect or you don't have anything that you're learning from each other, then you can be agile and iterate onto someone else. So it's quite a good way to look at things. So thank you very much for that, Karen. There was another question that came in while you were speaking. Are there any recommended Agile courses? So are there any that you two would recommend? Apart from the Academy, because we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah, there's a lot of things online, especially now for free. I've done a lot of free courses online. You have to kind of scope the internet a little bit. I know there's Cloud Academy that I did a few things on.
Okay.
Also, when you are doing that, someone also said something about trying to find ways of connecting with people. Networking events. Eventbrite is really good for that. I'm also quite an introverted person, and it was quite daunting. Like Karen said, I guess meeting people sometimes. If you have someone you can go with to these events, even if it's just for the first or the second time, that's also a really good way of doing it. And Stemets, that's how they helped me kind of get out of my shell, because I knew that there were other people around me the same age going through the same thing in the same place. So yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Karen.
I was going to say, what Jess said about Eventbrite, that was how I started networking even before I'd found Summit. And often if you're looking for networking events, a lot of networking events that you attend, there'll be networking events for you, but they won't necessarily be labeled as a networking event. Networking is about meeting people in the jobs and the industries that you're interested in and talking to them. So even if it's going to public lectures or open days and talking to people in the department, what I would do is I would go onto Eventbrite, and because I'm interested in science, I would put that in as the keyword. I put science or physics or astronomy or math and see what things came up. And so there would be a lot of public lectures held by universities, open events when like new departments were opening and stuff like that, which are really good networking opportunities. And it won't necessarily be labeled as a networking event, but the networking is about what you do when you get there, not the event itself so much.
That's a really good point. Yeah, every event is a networking event.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like there's always people to meet and networks to build. The other thing I find really interesting is if you can sum up the courage to ask a question at an event, at the beginning of the question, always say your name and kind of who you are or what you're interested in and ask the question. And I find that because people kind of have got you with a microphone or everyone's had to listen to you, then it's easier for them to then come to you if they're also interested in Agile or physics or astronomy or whatever it said. So I think that's always a really good one. Khadijah's asked, in events like this, is there an age limit? What have you found, Karen and Jess, about being a younger person at events like this?
Well, I put on a suit and I walk in there with my biggest grin, my biggest ego, and that's after like a lot of practice, by the way, definitely not at the start. And then I act like I'm 10 years older than everyone else, and that's the way to doing things. There is no age limit. I think I started with Stemets when I was like 14, maybe. And there were a few girls a bit older, a bit younger. And like even recently we went to see Tim Peake and the whole room was full of like 40, 50-year-olds. And we were the only young people. I was wearing my hoodie because I just came off the bus from like 3 hours away just to go to that event. So it doesn't matter. Be proud of yourself. If you're younger, it's a good thing. And even if you're really old as well, that's a good thing because you're trying hard to achieve your goals and you don't care what other people think.
Awesome. And the other thing I find is if you're go together, so the Tim Peake one, I think there were maybe 20 of you that were from STEMettes that have gone as a group. So it's always nice if you've got kind of like a buddy that you can go along with that you've met before and that you know you're safe with, and you can kind of buddy up, and actually it's easier to do it as part of a group. So that's what I suggest to Khadija, who's saying that. I think there was one other question. An agile team. Someone asked about an agile team. Where's the question going? I can't find the question at the moment. What is an agile team from Ramat? So Ramat just wanted to know a little bit about what is an agile team. I might go back to your slides, Jess, so we can talk a little bit more about an agile team.
So they're a team that works in an agile way. Before there was a framework, I think, called the waterfall method, which is how most businesses used to run. And like I said before, it's not a very iterative approach to doing your work. An agile team can be any team that adopts agile values and principles. So yeah.
Brilliant. There we go. And then one final question before we go to the end. So someone has asked, Ramat again, please give us advice on how we can be agile in the lockdown. So I'm liking the Kanban for being agile during the lockdown. I think definitely that's my top tip for being agile. Get on Trello and organize your life and everything. And make sure you stay on top of what you're doing so that the days and the hours don't kind of run away and you don't spend your whole time looking out the window at the sun. Two of you?
I think just if you are at home all day, you can be a lot more flexible with your time and how you spend it. So if you know you need to get something done, but you don't want to do it, or it's a big job, just do a little bit and say, I'll come back to that later. But I think the Kanban boards are really good that you don't have too many things that you start and say, oh, I'll come back to that later, and then you never end up finishing them. But even if you say to yourself, I'll just do 15 minutes, that's something I always do. Say, okay, I'll just do 15 minutes. And it helps me to get started. And often when I've done 15 minutes, I think, you know what, I'll do 15 minutes more. But just do a little bit. I think Agile is about being flexible, and you can do that when you're at home and you have the time.
Yeah, 15 minutes after 15 minutes after 15 minutes, and before you know it, it's time to have dinner, which is always great. Cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some opportunities for the STEMettes and Agile, and then we'll go to some of the other questions that we've got. So keep posting your questions, and I'm keeping an eye on them. And Team STEMette are actually kind of squirreling them away from me. So the first, or the main thing actually I wanted to talk about was opportunities with Agile with us at the STEMettes. So you'll see here 2 images. We've run 2 STEMettes academies, and if you look very closely, I think you can see Karen. Oh no, you can't. This is the second cohort, so you guys aren't in these photos, but you've been in the rest of them. But yeah, run Agile qualification cohorts. We run Agile certification academies. There we go, got it out there. With a company called QA, and they provide a lot of Agile training for adults. So I think they do about 10,000 a week normally when we're not on lockdown. And we get to do every half term. We kind of do a little bit of a takeover and take in between 8 and 16 STEMettes. So Jess and Karen were on our first cohort in October. We ran a cohort in February. And if any of you are interested, the next cohort is running in August. So we have a video that I will not play because my computer is being funny today, but we will definitely share with you all post-event. And I'm going to pop it now actually in the comments so you can all kind of open it in a new tab and you can watch. And this is a kind of rundown of what happens in those sessions. And we also are going to open applications. So we're going to see how things go. I think even if it's not physically, we're going to run them virtually. The next one is coming up in August. As Jess said, actually, she's not based in London. So we actually have people coming from all over the country. And we as STEMettes, if we're doing it physically, we'll pay for your train ride and everything it is for you to come down to London. The youngest that we've had on this has been 13. And the oldest has been, actually so far the oldest I think has been 21 maybe. But the sessions are 13 up to 21. So if you're within that age range, you're able to apply. If you take down that link and have a look, that's got some more of the details, and that actually has the video. So you can watch the video and kind of learn a little bit more about the academy. And that's our opportunity that we offer. Applications will open in June. So make sure that you're signed up to our newsletter, or you're a member of the Stemet Society, because as soon as we open it up first in the society, which both Jess and Karen are a part of now. And after that, then we open it up on Twitter and to the newsletter. So make sure you kind of you sign up for that, and you've got that link down. While we go into questions, I'm just going to pop the link for feedback into the comments. So we're almost done on the session. We're almost out of time. I know we had the audio issue, so we've noted that, so that's fine. But if there's anything else you would like to kind of give us feedback on, let us know. We do really enjoy running these sessions, and we've got 12 weeks, we've got 7 more weeks to go. So it'd be good to kind of have any more feedback from any of you on sessions like this and whether it works. And I've got the link there for the Stemet Academy. So I'm going to leave the feedback up there while we answer some questions. And I'm going to answer, I think, the ones that I can see here, the one the group sent me over. So Layla's Ramat has said, do you have to pay for the academy? No. Everything that we do at Stemet is free for you as young people. So no young people, anyone aged 13 to 21 has to pay. Jess, did you pay to be a part of it?
Mm-hmm.
Karen, did you pay? No, there we go. It's free. It's almost too good to be true, but it's not. So there we go. Okay. And how old do you need to be? So you need to be 13 to 21. So we've got some other questions here about Agile, which we should be able to answer. So Isabella said, are there any advantages to the traditional waterfall method? Gosh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I know some older businesses, they run on the waterfall method because maybe they're a bit too scared to jump into this new agile way of working. I guess in some ways it could be better. I heard for larger projects, some of them, and if they've been done before that way and you know that's the way it works, and I guess that's fine. But trying out a new way of doing things is always a good thing, because it might be better, it might be worse, but Agile is all about failing fast and learning from your mistakes. So if it works well the traditional way, which is the same way, just not iterative, then you can keep it like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Oh, sorry, go on, Karen.
It's okay. I was going to say, I think if it's the kind of project where you have like physical materials and you have to build something, if you're doing iterations, it can't be something where like you don't want to waste resources. So if it's something that, you only have limited resources, then I think waterfalls is better, where you just plan it and make sure you get it right sort of first time. But for non-physical projects, then I think Agile is definitely the way forward.
I think definitely, especially if it's expensive materials, right? Once you've ordered it, you've ordered it. Although I guess there's always the way out, which is you can sell stuff on, but I guess on big projects they maybe don't do that. I think it's an interesting one. If you've ever watched Grand Designs, you'll know that how they initially set things up is not necessarily how it ends up being. So I think even with construction projects, there's still an aspect of being agile where kind of when you're doing the kind of the base or the structure of the building, that's a very different cycle from doing the kind of interior fittings and even from kind of furnishing. So I think there's always elements of agile, and being flexible is, in real life, flexibility and being able to adapt to change is the way that you win, right? So I think it's an interesting one where waterfall, there's probably very few cases where you're strictly waterfall. But actually, most times you want to be agile. So Soraya has asked, how do you organize homework in an agile way?
Yep. So I know that when I was doing homework, I like being by myself, but I like the background noise of people being around me. On YouTube, they have a lot of live studying videos, so you've got other people studying at the same time, which will really help motivate you stick to those agile goals, and keep within those iterations, because if you see other people doing it, you might incorporate it as well.
Cool. I'd say put all your homework in a Trello board and put it on that Kanban and just do it like that. And then before you know it, you'll have finished all your homework. I think it's also very, very satisfying just to not just to finish your homework, but also to move to kind of done. So that's definitely my kind of advice for you. Alexandra has said, are there any new techniques that have been developed from Agile? I don't know. New apps, I guess, maybe is the answer. There's lots of new apps and lots of new technology. Most things have been developed in an Agile way. Are there any that you two would like to name, techniques that are developed from Agile?
Can we elaborate what kind of techniques, like development techniques, or?
I don't know, that's what Alexandra, do you want to let us know what kind of techniques you're talking about? No, cool. There's also a message to Karen or anyone else that's interested in physics. Contact the outreach manager at the National Physics Laboratory in Teddington.
Yeah, I saw that. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I will, definitely.
And it's really nice to see all of you who are slightly younger than we're allowed to have at the academy wanting to join in. So we promise you we'll be able to let you in a couple of years' time. So we're going for that. We're hoping for that. Yeah, Alexandra Mitchell asked, oh, a more advanced technique like Agile. Oh, I don't know. I think Agile is still being added to, right? It's still evolving. Yeah. And there's lots of tools within Agile. So we've only just shown you a couple. I was actually going to show retrospectives today as well, but I figured we wouldn't have enough time to do that. But actually, it's quite a broad tool set. And so, yeah, if you check out the hashtag, or if you're part of a group on LinkedIn, or if you networked and you're kind of connected in, then you can definitely compare notes with Agile practitioners to know how people are doing things. I think probably the biggest thing that I've seen is this idea of product owner or product manager, which when I graduated didn't exist as a job. And now, like, my best friend is a product manager at a bank. So there's quite a lot of kind of new roles that are coming up and new opportunities that have come up because of it, because of the Agile framework. But yeah, there's always new things, and then people always tweak it. So because it's so fluid and it's so open and so flexible, how one organization does Agile is ever so slightly different from how others do. And everyone has their own kind of method of doing it. And some people sometimes mix bits of Agile with bits of waterfall. So it's more a suggestion, right? It's not just a set of rules. It's more a framework. Yeah.
I would say to Alexandra as well, if you're just read here, she's going to research Agile after this. If you Google software development methodologies, loads will come up. You've got rapid, cycle, agile, waterfall. If it's specifically software development, you've got things like pair programming or extreme programming. Yeah, lots of different techniques that are used to boost productivity. But I think Agile is the biggest shift in how people approach work since waterfall.
Definitely, 100%. Sweeping everywhere, and that's why we decided to do a session on it. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Thanks to those of you that made it to the end. As we said, these are part of our 12 weeks of online STEM Mode in events. So do visit our website to see what's coming up next and what else you can join in with. You can meet and chat with people like Jess and Karen in the STEMette Society if you're aged between 13 and 25. So we do encourage you to join in with that. And we're going to start doing mindfulness sessions only for the society next week at 10:30 each morning. So do log in, and that's free as well. Also, share what you've learnt on social media. So we've been keeping an eye on hashtag STEM Mode in. Let us know what you've gained. Let us know, especially Alexandra, it's going to be doing some research, or anyone else. Let us know what you find out. Let us know the research that you're doing, and do stay in touch. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us. Thanks for all your questions, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thank you very much, everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.